Today is August 3rd, 2023. My name is Joe Todd. This is an interview with Darrell Williams in Durant, Oklahoma. Sir, where were you born?
Ludlow, Oklahoma.
Where?
Ludlow, Oklahoma. Actually, I was born in Tallahassee.
Tallahassee, okay.
In the hospital.
Yeah.
We were kind of modern.
Yeah. When's your birthday?
9/8/49.
Who is your father?
Zach Williams.
Zach Williams. And your mother?
Rita Britton.
What's the last name?
Britton.
B-R-I-T-T-O-N?
Yes.
Okay. Did you go through school in Tallahassee?
No, I went to school at Smithville.
Smithville. Okay.
Yeah, I went 8 years at Ludlow at Burkhart.
Okay.
After I graduated, they closed the school.
Okay. Burkhart, what is? Is that the elementary school?
It's the elementary school.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. What year did you graduate high school?
1967.
1967. From?
Smithville.
Smithville, okay. Who's your favorite teacher?
Jaredon Capehart.
I'm sorry?
Jaredon Capehart.
Why was your favorite?
Do what?
Why was
Why was he my favorite?
Yes.
Because he had a new 67 GTO. No, really, he made English interesting.
Okay. And what was his name again?
Jaredon Capehart.
Jerry
Don Capehart.
Oh, what's the last name?
Capehart. Capehart.
Oh, okay. What type of work your father do?
He was a driver, I guess. He drove school bus.
Okay.
He, back in the 30s during the Depression, there wasn't much work there, and he bought a car and took people to California to work in the harvest.
Yes.
And they were migrants. They weren't immigrants. They were migrants. They'd go out there and work all summer, and he'd bring them home.
Yeah.
And of course, he worked too, but he also got paid for hauling them out there and back.
Yes.
And then he drove a school bus where I went to school.
Okay.
Contracted to drive.
In high school, what did you do for recreation?
What did I do for recreation? In high school, I was part of the glee club.
Okay.
I sang and did stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The other boys made fun of me kind of because I didn't play basketball or baseball. I didn't get involved with vocational agriculture. I never did do that. But I was in where they taught music and stuff. And they said, "There's nobody in there but a bunch of girls." I said, "Right." Didn't think y'all figured that out.
How big was Smithville?
They were 66 kids graduated from senior when I graduated.
Okay. Describe your house in Smithville. How big was it?
Where I grew up?
Yeah.
20 by 40. It was a Jim Walter built house. We had lived in some small houses that we kind of rented, and a lot of times people would just say, "If you'll take care of this place, you can live there," because they lived somewhere else, and so we lived there. And then in the 60s, we bought a piece of, my dad and my grandpa went together and bought a piece of property, and they contracted Jim Walter Corporation out of Little Rock, and they come out and built a 20 by 40 just a frame house, and that's where I spent most of my growing up.
Okay. When was the house built?
1962, I believe.
Okay. What chores did you do around the house?
Around the house, fed the hogs, fed the dogs, brought home deer meat, and kept the yard clean, helped my dad in the shop. He did a lot of mechanic work, And then he got into cutting pulpwood and post, and so I was away from the house. I was cutting post and pulpwood by the time I was 14 years old.
Okay. How'd you cut the post?
With a chainsaw.
Chainsaw. Okay. Now, did you live in Smithville? Or you live out of Smithville?
I lived out of Smithville.
Okay.
It was about 35 miles west of Smithville.
You live on a farm?
We farmed a little, yeah.
Okay. What did you do in the farm?
Drove the tractor, cut weeds, dug potatoes, kept the crows run out of the corn, stuff like that.
Okay. How many hogs did you have?
The biggest bunch we had was probably 30.
Okay.
And we had some that were, they were domestic hogs, but they ran outside.
Okay.
And so we'd have to hunt them up and bring them in, and then we'd put some of the good ones in the pen and feed them out. And we, one of the things that he did, mainly raised them, for our own use, but he had some good ones. And I remember one time they were having a all night singing at Spring Hill Indian Church, and they always cooked hog, and they come up and wanted to buy one, and so he sold them a good black white listed hog, and they butchered it and cooked it all in a wash pot.
Yeah.
Sometime later, he come in, and I remember coming in, and my mom said, "We need to get hold of a little money," and he said, "When's the 5th Sunday?" She's, "That'll be next week." He said, "Lewis and them be up here wanting another hog." So he was feeding one out for that singing, and they come. Sure enough, they showed up and bought the hog, and took it down there and served it at the all night singing they had.
When was butchering time?
In the fall.
In the fall?
Yeah, usually after the first frost.
Okay.
When the air was cool, and we would gather. I remember the first one. I remember when I was a little kid. There was we had it in the pen and was going to butcher it. And the morning we were going to, because we were planning on it, and we had a fire, heating water, and everything. And this other Choctaw named David Bond came walking up. He was my grandfather's age. And they talked a little bit in Choctaw, and went down the pen, and David stepped up on a log by the fence and shot that hog between the eyes. And my grandfather jumped over in there and cut his throat, and whoa! And we drug him out and put him in a barrel of hot water and scalded him and pulled out and scraped all the hair off, and they hung it up. And that evening when we got done, David went home with a sack full of meat. That was the pay for coming, but he knew he was going to kill that hog.
Who rendered the lard?
My mother.
Mother, okay. Did
Yeah.
she make cracklings?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
do you make cracklings?
You take that cracklings, you take the fat from the outside around the belly and places, and she would cut big slabs and put it in the oven and bake it, and then it'd kind of render out some of it, and she'd catch that grease. And then after it rendered down some, she'd put that in a pot of lard and put water in the bottom, and it'd boil, and then it'd come up through the grease and puff up and make cracklings.
Oh, they were good.
Yeah, they were. now she made another one that was called, can't remember now. There's cracklings that we made with the outer fat, and then she cut all the fat off the intestines and rendered that out. And the cracklings from that didn't just, I don't know if it was the idea where it came from or what, but it just wasn't as good as what come off of the bacon, But there was another name for it, what come off the intestine.
Yeah.
But some of them old hogs get real fat.
Oh, yeah. Did your father cure the hams?
Yeah.
How'd he do that?
He hung them up and smoked them, and the smoke would sear the outside.
What wood did you use to smoke them?
Do what?
What wood did you use?
Mainly hickory.
Hickory?
Yeah.
Okay. You have a smokehouse?
Yeah.
How big was the smokehouse?
Oh, it was like 6 by 8.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a little frame building, and then put it in there and get where that smoke could roll in there.
Yeah.
It's kind of a cold smoke deal.
Okay.
But they seared them over like that, and then Later on, there's a little store down at Honeby, and I remember going down there, and the guy had a whole slab of pork belly, and packed in salt in a red oak box, and he would pull that out and cut off. Mom would say, I need a couple of pounds. And that guy could pull that out of there and cut it off and throw it on that scale, and he never missed over 2 ounces on that first cut.
And where was this? What was it?
Honeby.
How do you spell that?
Honobia.
Yeah, Honeby.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's they pronounce it Honeby. Most people do, but it's actually Honobia.
Okay.
And Honobia in Choctaw has to do with looking late. And there's a long story behind that, but that's what it means in Choctaw.
Okay.
And a lot of people mistranslate that. I heard one preacher that came in there and said it meant go no further. That's not what it meant.
Yeah. Okay.
You know.
What did you do after high school?
After high school, I went to the Bureau of Indian Affairs sent me to Fort Worth to a welding school in General Metals. I did welding machine shop and worked my first real job, other than helping my dad, was welding at a place called American Manufacturing. We built bombs that was dropping in Vietnam, and it was a pretty good job.
Where was that located?
In Fort Worth.
Fort Worth. Okay. Okay. How long did you work there?
About 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah, and then I moved over to Saginaw, just out of Fort Worth, to Janet.
You said you made bombs for Vietnam. What did you do?
What did I do? I run the capping machine. We put two lugs in the side of the tube, and where they could drill and put hangers in to hang them in airplanes on conveyors. And we put those lugs in, and another guy ran a stringer pass in the bottom to seal that, and then I run a 440 volt wire machine that run the cap pass on there as a flux core, and did the cap on those bombs, and those welds had to be penetrated all the way through and perfect, and that's what I did at American.
What explosive was used in those bombs?
I don't know.
Was it TNT or was it?
Probably. I don't. They didn't load them there.
Okay.
We just built the casings.
Okay. Okay.
And then they sent them out on trucks and took them somewhere else. And I was glad of that. 'Cause but we welded them in, and like I say, those welds had to be penetrated completely and no slag in them, perfect. And they would X-ray those to make sure they were up to code, and then they put them in a furnace and heated them up till a certain degree. They heated them, but they were red hot, and then they went through a squinch tank, they called it, and it watered and crystallized them.
Yeah. Okay.
So that when they exploded, they'd shatter.
Yeah. After you worked there, what'd you do?
Worked at J&L Tank.
Where?
J&L Tank.
J&L Tank.
Yeah, we built frac tanks, and we built milk trailers, those aluminum, and those hopper bottom grain trailers. They haul flour and stuff in.
Is that in Fort Worth also?
Yeah, it's just north of Fort Worth. It's
Okay.
actually in Saginaw.
Okay.
But
How long you worked there?
about 2 years.
Okay.
And then I worked, come back home, and I got a job as a maintenance man at a place called Comitia Mountain Mission. It's
Cummings.
Comitia Mountain Christian
Oh,
Mission.
Mission. Okay.
It was a church camp.
Okay.
I mowed the grass, took care of the plumbing, took care of the maintenance on buildings, and worked there a couple of years.
Okay.
And it's just because I needed a job and they needed a handyman. And they had a house I could live in, and it was close to home, and so I kind of tried to get back there.
Where's that located?
Honeby.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's in Honeby.
Okay.
And it's still there. And I was decided to go into ministry, and was ordained in Neshoba in 1975. And then I went to Bible college in Oklahoma City for a couple of years after that.
Yes.
And I learned, and I went to the Bible college. It was their school they recommended, It was. I found out later that it wasn't just a Bible college. It was a denominational Bible college. They taught what they were teaching in those churches. Yes. And I went up there wanting to learn about God. Mm-hmm. And in the second year, I figured out they were teaching me how to pass offering plate. That was the main focus. Yeah. And this is not why I'm here. Yeah. And so I checked out. Mm-hmm. And left. But
what did you do after you left?
Drove a log truck. Got a job driving one of those 18-wheel log trucks. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I drove it for a couple of years. Mm-hmm.
Now, was that done around Dirk's? Was Dirk's?
It was when Dirk's, just when Dirk's became Weyerhaeuser.
Yeah. Okay.
Weyerhaeuser bought them out.
Yes.
And we were actually contracted. The guy that I worked for was contracted to haul for Weyerhaeuser. Okay. We hauled them to Wright City.
Okay. For the sawmill.
For the sawmill.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And the truck I drove had a Caterpillar engine in it and a 15-speed transmission. And the guy that I drove for said we make 3 loads a day from the head of Black Fork up there at Neshoba to Wright City. Okay. He said, do you think you can handle that? I said, if the truck will handle it, I can handle it. And it would run 96 miles an hour with 30 ton of logs on it. And I'd make 3 loads a day. It was long days.
What was the name of the trucking company?
Scarberry Logging.
I'm sorry?
Scarberry Logging.
Okay. Who pulled maintenance on the trucks?
Do what?
Who pulled maintenance on the trucks?
I fixed the flats and that kind of stuff, changed oil, greased them. Anything bigger than that, they took it to a shop.
Okay. Okay.
But I maintained the tires and changing oil and stuff like that.
So how many miles to Wright City?
It was 106 miles from where we were loading.
And you made 3 loads a day?
3 loads a day.
That's a long day.
A long day, and you had to be rolling.
Now, who unloaded the truck at Wright City?
The lumber company.
The lumber company.
The sawmill. They had big stackers.
Yes. Okay.
They had a stacker that would come in there and pick up that whole load and one left.
Yes. Okay.
And they unloaded it, and then we pull around there. They had a rack with a winch in it, and you picked the trailer up and it folded up on the truck, so you could go home in a hurry.
Yeah.
And we haul that trailer back and get up in the woods and turn around and dump it off and stretch it out and load it. And I'd eat lunch while they was loading me and get back in and go again.
How long did you drive the truck? How many?
About 4 years.
4 years. Okay. And then what'd you do?
Then I moved to West Texas. And my wife's dad was a house mover, and he had died. And we bought all his equipment and moved houses for 26 years.
Okay. Where in West Texas?
San Angelo.
Oh, San Angelo. Okay. How do you move a house?
We had these big steel beams that we'd get under it, full length. A regular frame house, you can just put main beams under it. Yeah. You space them just right. Mm-hmm. And you pick it up, and it'll sit there. And, you take all anchor bolts off, if it had any. A lot of them didn't have. They're just sitting on posts. But a lot of the older houses, we picked those up with winch trucks and had trailers that was built out of a truck suspension that they cut the gear casing out of and put it back together so it wasn't very wide, and then put them under there on them beams and chain them to them. And they just chained to them beams. We wrapped them chains and pull them down with boomers, but they better be tight. And we moved some 2-story houses, got in and moved them. That was a real challenge. Mm-hmm. And some of them we'd have to cut the roof off at the 2nd floor to clear stuff. Mm-hmm. And had to have wire crews to help us get under them, under wires and stuff. Mm-hmm. But we moved several 2 stories. And we were, of course, the company that my wife's dad had was already on the registry for the Texas Historical Society. He had moved some historical buildings. Yeah. So naturally, when we bought the name, we were historical. And so historical buildings had to be put back just like they were. If you cut a section off, you pulled the nails, put a piece of tape on them with a number, saved them, and put it back in the same place. And it had to be right, you know. But we moved several historical buildings.
Why would you move a historical building?
Why?
Why?
Well, it was reason most of the time was they wanting to put a freeway through there.
Okay.
or build something else,
Yeah.
and they didn't want to get rid of that building. And so because it is historical, we want to save it, and so we would move it somewhere else and set it up and put it back. The surrounding areas look like where we had, where it came from.
Okay.
You know, the landscaping and stuff. We're trying to. There was one in Austin that we moved that was the original New Orleans club that Willie Nelson, John Baez, and them got started in Austin, and it was rock walls with a wood floor in the center. And of course, the beams had rotted out in the floor by the time it got moved. And we dug down and put beams under those rock walls and crossed beams in there and welded it all together and poured slab in it. And then picked it up, slab and all, so it would stay together.
Yeah.
And moved it up on the hill where the Riverwalk is in Austin now. Symphony Square is down there, and the New Orleans Club sitting up on the hill. It's a tourist center.
Okay.
And you come out of there, and they built a amphitheater around it, and the symphony played down on the river. But that was our big historical job.
How many years did you move houses?
26 years.
26 years.
Yeah, retired in 2008.
Now, when did you come to Durant?
I come to Durant in 2016.
Okay. Well, I didn't ask. Where did you meet your wife?
Tuscaloosa.
Tuscaloosa.
Labor Day Festival.
What's the Labor Day Festival?
Do what?
What's the Labor Day?
The Labor Day Festival is a Choctaw event that we have on Labor Day every year. It draws thousands of people. And at the time, that's one thing I left out from driving that log truck. I was working maintenance at Tuscaloosa, taking care of the grounds, and I was on there about a year and a half. And maintain the buildings, mow the grass, and all that. And she brought her grandmother up for the festival, which our grandmother Choctaw, and they came from San Angelo to that festival. And I saw her when she drove through the gate. And come around, I was helping people set up their campsites and everything, and come around and visited with her. And when the festival was over, she went back to San Angelo, and I went out there and hunted her up. And we've been married 38 years.
What's her name?
Mary Lee.
Mary Lee.
Mary Lee Logan.
Okay.
Is her name. We're still together.
Okay. Now, you work at the community center here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's your job here?
I'm a chef.
You're a chef.
I cook for the senior
Oh,
citizens.
okay.
Yeah. When I retired in '08, I'm just going to go live on the river out there at Ludlow, Honaby.
Mm-hmm.
I had an Indian house out there that we built in 1980.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to just go and enjoy life. And we come back up here in '08 and enjoyed life for about 6 months, and then it got old. And they had a Bigfoot festival at Honaby. So we went there and checked that out, and we played a little music, just a fun deal. Mm-hmm. And we got on the program, and the next festival they had, we ran the program. Mm-hmm. We knew a lot of musicians, and we got the program lined up for entertainment. We did all that, and we developed our own little company called Windwalker Sound that we did events for. It was a hobby, but it was, we made a little money at it. And we worked that festival a couple of years, and then a friend of mine I grew up with that worked logging years ago, he was now building roads for logging and stuff, on the racetrack at Neshoba, and a dirt track, and he said, would you come over and run this track? So we'll give it a try. And he liked to race, and so he couldn't run the track and race too. So I ran the track for a couple of years, and it was just something to do.
Yeah.
And we made a little money off of it. And 2014, I had bypass surgery and did 4 of them, and slowed me down a whole lot. And I found out I couldn't run that racetrack anymore, and also couldn't drive backhoes and stuff in the weather. And my son lives here in Durant. He works for Choctaw, and he said, "Why don't you come down here and get you a part-time job cooking?" I said, "I've never had a job cooking." He said, "Yeah, but you're a good cook." And he said, "You've always been able to convince people that you could do anything." He said, "You never moved a house either till you started, till you took that on." And so I came to Durant, and I just needed a part-time job to keep us going. I came to Durant and went over here to the casino and talked to the chef and convinced him that I knew how to make barbecue brisket. And he hired me. They got a big smokehouse that they were cooking brisket and stuff to serve for events. And he hired me for that, and then a couple of months later he up and died on us. And they got another chef that wasn't interested in that. And so I worked for him for about a year over there in the Butterfield Buffet. And the chief came by and asked me, I'd known him when he was younger, and he came by and talked to me about heritage foods. And so I left there and come over here to the community center, worked for senior nutrition. And the idea was, when I come over here, let's develop food from our traditional foods that becomes a cuisine. And let's enhance that to the point that people from the city will come to southeast Oklahoma for the purpose of eating Choctaw food. And I told the chief, when we was talking about it, I said, a lot of our traditional stuff. He said, "I know." Yeah, but that's why I want you to enhance that. And so we've taken the traditional things. I have a little problem with that. I mean, I don't, but other people do. I would fix something that was based on a traditional dish, but we enhance it, and people will say, "This ain't the way my grandmother fixed this." "Yeah, no, I cooked it in the oven." Yeah, I got a convection oven. And so the heritage foods is taken from traditional back 2 or 3 generations, like Indian tacos. They think those are tradition. The first Indian taco I ever seen was in 1965. We never heard of that. And so it developed, but now it's traditional food. Anyway, I'm trying to enhance that and find easier, better ways to.
What are the traditional foods?
Tonche labona, shuka nipi, it's like fried pork. There is a beef hump, which is actually the prime rib off of beef. When I was a kid, we called it beef hump. My grandfather said they developed that from buffalo hump, that big hump on the buffalo. And people kind of made fun of them for eating buffalo hump way back there, but they knew it was good. And so it was smoked in a rock smoker. And we cooked it. That was actually the prime rib. A friend of mine bought 2 buffalo bulls. He's the father of the guy that owned the racetrack I was talking about earlier. Bought 2 buffalo bulls back there and brought them out to Neshoba, and he was artificial inseminating cattle with the buffalo and crossing buffalo with the limousine type cattle, long bodied cattle, and they were producing prime rib on those cattle that was that long and that thick. And you'd see them walk around out there in the pasture with that big hump on the back of that cow. and that was some real prime rib. And today they call it Beef Master. And but he helped develop that, and so that was from a traditional thing. And one of the things I like to cook here is a beef hump, which is a smoked prime rib. And just the ribs, ain't not much meat on them. We found that out years ago, but boy, they're good to gnaw on. But we cook a lot of that. And but the most popular traditional food is what they call tonche la bona, which is actually tonche la bona.
Okay.
Is what they call it. That ain't what it is. It's tonche is corn, okay, and la bona is hominy. It's all corn, but it's the hominy is from field corn. The human digestive system can't digest that husk, and so they learned thousands of years ago to put that field corn in water and boil it with ashes until the husk comes off. And then when the husk come off, they dry that kernel, and it was a whole kernel. And Choctaw name for it was la bona, but it's a whole kernel corn, and it's a particular, and just field corn. It's a white corn. Do you use usually a yellow corn to make roast ears and stuff, that you can eat the corn. But that field corn was raised for feed for hogs and cattle and stuff. And but you could boil it, and I helped do a lot of that when I was a kid. My grandpa was real good at it, and they had them big old cast iron wash pots. They'd boil that in, and you got to keep it stirred and stay with it. And boy, it got old, but he'd come out there once in a while and pull some out, and I got to cook it a little more. They'd cook it down until that husk starts slipping off, and then they would rinse that off and rinse the ashes out of it, pour clean water over it, and pull that husk and let it dry a little bit. And then my mom would can it, and it got us through the winter. She made a lot of stuff with hominy, and it was a filler, and it had good protein, and you could digest hominy, but you can't digest the husk. And so you have to get rid of that. But that's a traditional thing. And a lot of people I've learned in my cooking, what they call tonche la bona is actually shuka la bona. It's they crush. It's actually pashofa. Cherokee's name is pashofa, but Choctaws use it too, especially down in the southwest part of the Choctaw Nation. Up in the northeast corners, we didn't make pashofa much, but down close to the Chickasaws, they would make pashofa, and what they did was take that field corn and use a mortar and pestle and bust it so it cracked open, and then they'd boil it real slow. And what happened when they're boiling it, that husk could come off while they're cooking it, and they'd strain that out and get it off there. So they were actually making hominy. It's just a different method. And so they crushed that, cook it down, and when they strained that husk off, they'd put chunks of pork in there and cook with it. And that's a tradition. Pashofa is called. They cooked that, and what my mama did would mix the canned hominy, the la bona, that she'd canned, and it'd be big old chunks, they'd be swelled up. Didn't have much flavor, and she would mix that with yellow corn, the sweet corn, and cook it together, and that was tonche la bona for me, corn and hominy. But what they make pashofa, and where I run across a lot of people on tradition, they say, you got to have pork in there. Well, if it's tonche la bona, it's corn and hominy. And you use the hominy for the filler and the sweet corn for flavor. It was tonche la bona. And of course, my mama was a white woman, and she cooked a little different, but she raised 10 Indian kids, so it was kind of part of it. But
did you ever go back in the ministry?
Yes. Yeah, after I got to San Angelo,
Okay.
We asked me to fill in they found out that I had some experience, and this church asked me if I would help them. At first they asked me to fill in since they didn't have a pastor. And so I said, yeah, I can keep us going. So we did Sunday morning, and then they said, could you help us out till we can find a pastor? 13 years later, they still didn't have a pastor. But when I was ordained back there, it was for evangelism. Mm-hmm. And so I used a lot I had learned then. And,
what church is San Angelo?
San Angelo Baptist Tabernacle.
Okay.
It was an independent Baptist.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And of course I was raised in Church of Christ, but my grandfather taught me a lot of spiritual stuff, mm-hmm. and I've used that a lot. And we got...
What spiritual stuff?
Like the word hashtali is the spirit of the living God. It's a verb. It's not a noun. Mm-hmm. It's an action. And what he taught me growing up was God is action. And God is in everything and about everything, and you got to pursue that. He said God is not a superhuman type entity live out there in the sky somewhere. That's not God. That's white man's version of God. But he said God is spirit. Years later, when I was in full ministry, I found where Jesus of Nazareth said God is spirit. Like in John 4, he's talking to a woman at the well, Samaria. And she said, now we Samaritans worship out here in the mountains, and you Jewish people worship in Jerusalem to a deity called Yahweh. Who's right? And Jesus said, you don't know what you're worshiping because you can't define it. God is spirit. Jesus said that in John 4. Mm-hmm. So what my grandfather was telling me was consistent with what Jesus of Nazareth said mm-hmm. in John 4. And so then it become more reality, and I still hold to that ideology of God being an action verb. It's a spirit of life.
The traditional Choctaw religion, mm-hmm. before European contact, mm-hmm. what did they have?
Spirit.
Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. And they didn't have assemblies. Mm-hmm. They didn't have church meetings. Mm-hmm. Every one of them possessed it. They were taught that from the time they were young. Your relationship with the world is right here. Mm-hmm. And you can call on that. They also had ancient, before the Europeans got here, they had a word called nanapisa, mm-hmm. which was the grandparents. And the Europeans thought they call us pagans, but that's not the true pagan. Yeah. Pagan worships a deity of some sort. A heathen has no established religious gatherings. And the Israelites that lived in the Golan Heights over in Palestine were heathens. They worship spirit. Mm-hmm. And Choctaws worship spirit. And they worshiped the spirit of the living God, the Ashtali. But when they needed help, they didn't necessarily call on Ashtali for help. They called on Nanapisa, which was the grandparents. And the people who have died and gone on, who knew how to deal with life, would call on that. And it wasn't, most of the time they'd just say grandfather, but they meant grandfather and grandmother. It was the parent image. And so ancient, this is before the Europeans got here, they called on the Nanapisa for help in time of need. Grandfather, help me. I still do that a lot. When it started really coming back together, had moved a big house in San Angelo. It was bigger than me, and I had to cut a section off of it to get it where I go down the road. We put it back together, and it didn't fit. And the foundation I built, I got it back up there where it was touching, but it was just far apart at the top. And now, how did that happen? I cut it off of there. Why don't it go back? You know? And my wife said, I'm going to go in the house. And I said, I'm going to stay here a while. So they left. And I poured me a cup of coffee and sat down there and was drinking that coffee. What's happening here? This is when I first discovered that what my grandfather told me about the Nana Pisa was true. I was drinking that coffee and I said, okay, Jack, what do I need to do? That was my wife's dad. He was gone. I never met him. But I'm sitting here and I said, okay, Jack, what do I need to do? And before I finished that cup of coffee, I knew. And I went around on the back side of the house, knocked the blocks out from under it, and put a big jack under there and started jacking it up, and that gap started closing. And what had happened, the house was built crooked. And when I put it back, I was trying to put it back straight. That wall had a bow in it. And when it's sitting down on the foundation, it was pulling this away. And when I jacked it back up, it went back in there. So then I cut blocks and stacked it there and plastered the outside, and it looked perfect. But I went home, and it took me a while to do all that, but that's how I fixed it. But I went home to my wife. I said, I believe your dad came by work today. She said, why? And I told her, and she said, in case you don't know it, my dad rides with you in the truck. He watches everything you do. and then I realized how spiritual she was. But I didn't know all that younger. I mean, I was told that by my grandfather, but the church told me something different. And then it all comes back. And my grandfather would tell me when he was still alive, still in the body, he'd teach me things. And he said, I'm going to tell you this. I don't know if it's true, but there's truth in it. And one of these days, you'll see the truth. You might not see it right now, but there'll come a time when you'll see the truth in what I'm telling you, and it'll affect your life. And he was full blood, and he told me that. And a lot of them, I thought, oh, he's making up some deep stuff here, you know. But then years later, I could see what he was talking about. And that's the Spirit speaking.
Of course, was your grandfather an enrollee Choctaw? Okay. Yeah. Where is his allotment?
Where was it?
Yeah.
Pickens.
Pickens. Okay. Did your grandfather tell you any stories about the Choctaw?
Yeah.
What did he tell you?
One of the things that he told me made a big impression on me. He said there's something he called Immahoxie.
Called what?
Immahoxie.
Moxie.
Immahoxie.
Immahoxie.
Yeah. And I knew, I'd heard him use hoxie, which is drunk, you know. But he said, Immahoxie. He said, sometimes you get in a state of mind that's not normal. And when that happens, sometimes you're visited by Immahoxie. It's out of mind, out of normal consciousness. He said mind, but out of the normal mind, you'll experience things. And it makes sense, but you cannot explain that. And he said, if you act on that, it'll affect your life. It'll help you. But he said, I said, what does the Immahoxie look like? He said, maybe a man with wings, maybe a man with lots of hair, maybe a big rabbit, maybe a donkey. But he'll talk to you and tell you things. And he said, watch for that. I said, do you have to be drunk? And he, no. He said, a lot of stuff will get you over that edge. He said, them people out in New Mexico eat peyote to help them. Don't do that. He said, alcohol will cause people to see things sometime, and they just think they're drunk. He said, them people over, he said, Native Americans do this. When a guy gets to be the age of becoming a man, they'll make him go hungry 3 or 4 days and do without no food at all and just sit out here in the woods. And he said, when you get real hungry where you think you're going to pass out, it'll cause your mind to see things. And then I found out later in the Bible that they fasted and got visions on the other side of the world. But Native Americans were doing that way back. The Choctaws would do that. Kids would get grown, they'd take them, especially the men, as you know, going to be hunters or warriors. They'd take them out there with an old timer, an elder, to watch them, make sure they didn't get hurt. And you just stay out here a while, just sit here. No, you can't eat anything. You know, you drink water, clean water, but don't eat anything. And 2 or 3 days, you go off out here by yourself. But the elder could always see him, you know, and make sure he ain't gonna get hurt. And they would have a vision of something that was gonna mark their life. And this was ancient Choctaw religion. It wasn't religion, it was a spiritual connection. Learning to see things in the superior level of consciousness. We've learned now that the human brain is built that way. We thought it was something magical. But science has shown us now that our brain processes thoughts, and sometimes it'll receive stuff that's beyond what we thought. And so it manifests. But he said it was an Amahoxie. And I tell a lot of people today, they talk about Bigfoot and Sasquatch and that stuff. I say, I don't know. I think Bigfoot's created in the minds of people's consciousness, but I think a Sasquatch is a Amahoxie. People only see them when they're in a altered state of mind. And you listen to people tell their stories, and someone say, "Oh, I was out here hunting and I saw," you know, you imagine that. But I was just minding my own business, but I was, what was you thinking about? You know, we were thinking about our situation at home, giving a lot of thought when I saw this. That's Amahoxie. We're out of our normal mind way of thinking. And he believed that, he told me that. My brother had an experience, and he was telling about it, and first time I really heard it, and grandfather said, "Oh, that's an Amahoxie." You know, okay, what's that? You know, I wanted to know, and he explained some of it to me, and then I did research on it later and found out that that's what Native Americans believe. That's what Choctaws believed.
What's your grandfather's name?
Mike Williams.
Okay.
Mike Williams was his name. And he was born in 1895, and he got the allotment over there at Pickens on the Pickens Creek, south of Honeby. And him and he had a brother named Osby, and they grew up from over there. And then he met Betty Davis, who was a white woman from Honeby, and that was my grandmother.
Okay.
And that was my daddy's mother. And but I got a lot from him. But that's where and when he got old, he almost died over there by himself. He's over by himself. And a rancher over there named Bo Young came over to Honeby where we lived, and up to my dad, and he said, "You need to go see about Mike. That he is really sick. Said in fact he's at my house now, and we put him to bed, but you need to come check on him." So Daddy went over and got him, and they took him to Tallahassee, and he stayed in a TB sanitarium for quite a while. And when he got out, I remember when I was a kid, Mom and Dad talking about, we can't let Papa just go back over there and live by himself. And, you know, my mom raised 10 kids, and she said, well, you can come live with us. She didn't have all 10 of them at the time. She only had 5, but she said, well, you can come live with us. And my dad said, are you sure? She said, yeah, we'll fix some room. So they went and got him, and he lived with us till he died. And he taught me a lot of stuff. But
Anything else about the Choctaws?
Do what?
Anything else about the Choctaws?
Coming in from, he didn't know about it, but it was handed down. You know, he talked about having that understanding that we need to get along with people. We need to, the world changes. We have to change with it. We can still be who we are, but we can adapt as the world changes. He said, we've been doing that for centuries. He said they, you know, came from, he said, way back there, they lived in southeast Oklahoma. He said, I don't know how they got on the other side of the river. The river's too big to cross. But he said they originally came from southeast Oklahoma, and their brothers, the Chickasaws, the Cherokees, was originally here. But he said, so when they moved us back over the Trail of Tears, it was like we were going home. And he said, we will do things here. I have a picture of him in 1947, that's when it was taken, and they'd gotten hold of some money from the government, and he was standing here, he didn't have on what we have today that's tradition, they say is traditional Choctaw outfits. He didn't dress that way. None of the rest of them did. In this picture, he had on a suit jacket, a white shirt, and a necktie in 1947. And he had his pipe in his hand, and a handful of money, and his billfold open. And I said, what's this all about? He said, well, I wanted to mark that day that we got money from some other source. So I took that picture. And I said, do you think we're going to get money from other sources? Oh, yeah. He said, I was standing out there on the mountain praying on this about our people. And he said, I was standing there and I could see these big buildings with lots of lights and Choctaw symbols all around the outside of Choctaw Nation, and people coming and just handing us money. I go, really? This was in the 60s when he lived. I said, really? And I said, you think it's going to happen? Oh, yeah. He said, I saw it. And you're going to see it. He said, in your lifetime, you will see Choctaw Nation with lots of big buildings, lots of lights, and people coming and just handing us money. And okay, that's a good hope.
Yeah.
Today it's happening.
Yes, yes.
He was seeing that, and he said a lot of old Choctaws can see things because they know to trust the spirit of life, and they know to trust what our grandparents have already gone through. And he said that's why when we pray, we call the Great Spirit, but we pray through the Nanapisa, the council of grandparents. He said a bunch of them out there.
What instruments do you play?
I play guitar,
Guitar. Okay.
mainly guitar.
That was excellent. What is your favorite childhood memory?
My favorite childhood memory. Probably him telling me stuff. I remember a lot of things, but probably my favorite stuff, he would try to teach me Choctaw, and Mom would say, "You don't need to put that in his head. He needs to learn to read and write English. That's why we're sending him to school." She said, let him learn the Bible, let him learn English. Okay, you know. And I remember him saying, "Want to go fishing?" Yeah. So we'd go over the river and fish, and he'd tell me stuff. And I used to, and that's some of my favorite memories. A little old fire there, and we'd be fishing, just little old perch and stuff. But he'd tell me stuff, and I'd ask him, tell me something. And he'd say, "I'm going to tell you this. I don't know if it's true or not, so don't." That's when he'd get in. Don't go around telling him, but I don't know if it's true. But this is what I heard. And he said, "I think there's truth in it." And that's probably some of my favorite.
What did he tell you?
A whole bunch of different stuff. He told me about he said, over there on Claddy Creek, down from Pickens, he said, you got Pickens Creek, and you go on down there on the Claddy River, a little bit west of there. And he said, they say there's a big old snake down there, got one horn in the middle of his head. Stay away from him, And I thought, yeah, I'm definitely going to stay away from that, He said, I'm serious. He said, a lot of people think if you kill him, he said, I don't know if it's true, but they say if you kill that big snake with that one horn and get his heart, you don't have to eat it, but you can dry that and hang on to it, put it in a little bag or something, carry it around. Nobody has to see it, but they know you got that heart. He said, as long as you got that heart, that snake with one horn, women can't say no. Should I go hunt that snake or what? I didn't know what he was telling me, but he told me that, and he also told me, he said, sometimes you might see things out there in the woods. It ain't gonna hurt you. He said, a long time ago, Choctaws were living in Alabama, down in that country, and a white man came in, had lots of metal clothes on, riding horses, and he said they run onto a big Choctaw, named Tuscaloosa, Chito. And he was pretty smart, and he knew what was coming. He told them guys if they take them over here 6 days to this other place, he'd give them 200 women. He'd give them 200 men to carry stuff and help hunt game. But you got to go over there 6 days with me to this other place, and I'll give them to you. And he said they went over there, and when they got there, this place had a fort made out of trees standing in the ground, and all the fields were cut down. All the corn was gone all around it, and they got about halfway across, and he said, Tuscaloosa, not Chito, grabbed that guy's horse, throwed it down, and they started a big fight, and he said they killed him, but they didn't kill him. And he said, that's the way the story goes. And the guy on the horse got wounded. And I heard he died later. But they went out there where that big Indian was laying on the ground. And just when they got there, he got up and walked off. But he was still laying there. He said, I don't know if this is true, but he was still laying there. And when he got to the woods, he looked back and he said, I'm going to be here. And he said, the story goes that white man got a high fever, and at night he'd see that big Indian out there in the woods looking at him, and it was scary to him. And he said every time Choctaws have problems with life, community around them, being abusive and all of that, he show up. And I said, well, what was his name? He said, oh, today they say Tuscaloosa, which means black warrior. But he said his name was Tuscaloosa Nataxischito. He was a big guy with black jaw hair. Well, I've studied that, and that was Hernando de Soto that he was telling me about, but it was handed down, you know, from generations. But he said, sometime when you having trouble, you see him, and he'll tell you stuff. And that's why he believed. When you see, I've done studies on that, you know, and when people see what they call Sasquatch, it fits in that. Everything he told me. They're troubled. They may be drunk. They may be on dope. You know, but their mind is altered. And he shows up with peace. And later, you know, I was a grown man when he told me about the Immohoxie. But he told me about that, Tuscaloosa, not Nataxischito, when I was a teenager. I mean, young, preteens. And a lot of stuff he did, that and that big snake. And he also told me, he said, this mountain back here, Kamish, I call it, he said, if you could see that from the air, he said, way down on that end, you can see that snake's rattlers sticking up. You come way around here on the east, he'll coil up like this with his head. You can pull that up on Google Maps, look at it from a satellite, and you can see it. There's some rocks that outcropped on Kamish Mountain over by Clayton. You can see them rocks sticking up in there. On the west end. On the east end, Kamish Mountain goes just before it gets to Arkansas. It curls back over into Blue Bouncer, another mountain, and it rolls around there. Now, I don't know how he knew that. You know, there's no way he could have seen that from a satellite. But he said, that's the way that mountain looks. Yeah. And he said, that means something. But I don't know, and like I say, I don't know how he knew that. Because I know he didn't walk that mountain from one end to the other. It's too long. But he knew that was there.
Tuscaloosa, Tuscahoma.
And Tuscahoma is Red Warrior.
Yeah. Were they brothers?
Might have been. I don't know.
That's what I've heard.
I've heard that.
Yeah, okay.
I've heard they were brothers.
Okay.
I've also heard that, and he told me this, Bushmataha was a warrior of intelligence. He said he did some stuff that was not normal. You know, he could see ahead what was happening. But he told me about him, but he said he was connected with Tuscaloosa and Tuscahoma, which would have been Red Warrior and Black Warrior. Yes. And from all that, when we were living in San Angelo, this is interesting. We were living in San Angelo. Our son was a teenager. There's this little town northeast of San Angelo that we'd go through when we was coming up here called Tuscola. Sign says Tuscola. And we was coming through there one day, and Logan, our son, said, we named him my wife's maiden name, Logan Williams. He works for Choctaw too. But anyway, we was coming through there, and I said, you see that name on that sign? He said, Tuscola? I said, yeah, I think that is actually Tuscola. I think that was a pale warrior. It's what they named this town after. I said, you ought to check this out. I said, you get on the internet and see how Tuscola got its name. I said, I think it's a Choctaw word. Tuscahola, like the Nahola, you know, the white people, and I think that's a pale warrior. Well, a few days later, he said, "Dad, I looked that up, and you were right. Tuscahola came from, during the Texas Revolution, he came from up north somewhere, and he was part Indian, but he was mainly white looking, had more white outcropping." And he fought in the Texas Revolution along with, his name was actually Jim Ned, and he said he fought with Fannin and Sam Houston and them in the Texas Revolution. And he was Jim Ned was his name, but they called him the Pale Warrior. And the high school in Tuscola is Jim Ned High School. I mean, it is today. And this is what was wild about it. There was a kid that grew up at Tuscola, played football, and his name was Colt McCoy. And he grew up there, and they called him Pale Warrior. Now, I don't know how they got that together, but that's what they called him. But his name was Colt McCoy. And his daddy was the coach at Tuscola. And when he graduated from high school, his freshman year in Texas University, he was starting quarterback as a freshman. And I mean, this is for real. I had never been interested in football, but when Logan told me that he was from that town and this is what he's doing, I want to watch OU and Texas was playing, and I'm going to watch this football game. And my wife said, "We're going to cheer for Texas." You know, well, okay. You know, it's symbolic. So we're going to watch this whole game. I never watched football, never was interested in it. And we'll watch this whole game. They come out with a lineup and they introduced Colt McCoy, starting quarterback as a freshman, which was unusual. And big deal on him. And then they introduced the quarterback for OU, which was Sam Bradford. I said, "I think I'm going to have to change sides here." You know, and we watched that whole game, and Logan, our son, I can't believe it. I come home and Mom and Dad was sitting in there watching a football game, you know, and cheering for our heroes. But he was, I don't know if Colt McCoy was part Indian or not, but I know he's a good quarterback. And what led him to a lot of victories. Yeah. And of course Bradford did too. And
won the Heisman.
Yeah, right. And I think it was his daddy that won the Heisman before, because this one was the second generation, Sam Bradford. This was phenomenal.
Yes. But sir, this is an excellent interview.
Well, thank you.
I want to thank you.
There's a lot of our history connected in Texas and Oklahoma.
Yes.
And
anyway, and again, this is August 3rd, 2023. My name is Joe Todd. This has been an interview with Darrell Williams in Durant, Oklahoma. Thank you.
Thank you.